Sometimes you might find that when you're learning a different language, you forget words all of a sudden. You might have felt like you could have a conversation or be semi fluent the day before or a few days ago, but then today you just can't get your words out. That will happen both in your target language and your native language. So, in this video, I'm going to cover why on some days you just can't put a sentence together, whereas other days you can. What changes in your brain and why does that happen? I'm also going to share advice and tips on how you can prevent yourself from forgetting words and make it more ingrained into your memory for long term. My name is James. I'm a native English speaker. Puedo hablar español y anche posso parlare italiano. I have 11 years of language learning experience. Now, the first reason you might be forgetting words is because of lack of contextual practice. So, what happens is our minds have to learn a word most effectively by surrounding it with context. So, this means that if we learn a word without attaching it to any meaning or concept. So say you see a list of words on a piece of paper and you learn car means XYZ or something, and you're like, okay, that's cool. But then you'll forget it. Whereas if you see a car or you go and buy a car or you associate that word with a car or with the object, then your mind is more able to recall it in the future because you've essentially saved it next to something else that you know in your mind. So that's called contextual association. And when you associate a word with context, it means it's less likely to be forgotten in the moment next time you want to recall it in conversation. Just think of it this way: you might be trying to speak a different language or your target language, and you know a word, you remember it, but it's a really niche word and you didn't expect yourself to remember it. But then there might be a common word such as and or therefore that you just forget. You forget the meaning of it. And that's because there would have been in that moment more contextual meaning around that word. So you might know a really niche or long word in a different language, but you didn't expect yourself to remember it. But what it would have meant is when you learnt it, there's a lot of meaning behind it, which allows your brain to recall it better in the future. And that's how it works. So to get past that, any word that you learn, try and have an emotional feeling behind it. Try and imagine yourself using that word in different scenarios, or imagine what it could impact in your life. For example, if you're seeing the word ice cream, maybe you go on holiday and you have an ice cream with your family or something. That could be, it's a random example, but if you remember it like that and you're learning, for example, Spanish, and you remember that word and you visualize you using that word in a context that you see yourself doing in the future, that then reinforces in your mind that that is important. That's the basis behind it. That's the whole concept behind how your mind knows if to remember a word or not, is if it's got a high level of importance to your mind. So if you care about it, essentially. The next point is environment. So if you're in an environment where a lot is expected of you, or there's a lot going on and you can't really think, or you're having to do things at the same time, maybe you're in a restaurant with your friends abroad and you're doing things and you're chatting and you're having a conversation, but then you want to speak to the waiter or waitress, or you want to have a conversation in your target language. You might be in a bit of stress already because you're already thinking about the meal or what you want to order. So the word that you want to say might not come to your mind, and that's because of cognitive load. So that's a factor that affects you, the cognitive load. And that means that you're already thinking too much about other things going on around you that your mind isn't able to generate the word that you want quickly enough in your target language. So it's not a reflection on your ability to speak that language, it's just in that moment you don't have the capacity in your brain to speak it and generate that word. However, that ties back to my first point, which is the association. If you have a strong association with that word anyway, then it makes it easier for your brain to come up with that word and generate it, even if you're stressed or you've got a lot going on in your mind in the moment. So those things come hand in hand, but obviously you can't have all control over reducing your stress, or if there's a lot going on, you can't reduce that. But what you could do is maybe take some time out just before you're about to say something, come up with the words you want to say. So if you want to ask, for example, at a dinner table, if a certain thing is spicy for your friend, just go, okay, thank you, I'll have a think about it. And then maybe look at the menu for a few seconds and think, just generate what you want to say in your head beforehand, and then you can say it. Because that allows you to think about what you want to say before you say it. And obviously, if they come back to you and ask you more questions, you can't really do much about that apart from hope that the contextual association with the word is there and loaded ready for you to apply in the way you want to. But just try and minimize the things that are going on around you. Make sure there's not too much noise going on, because if there's background noise, it's hard to hear what they're saying anyway. And if you're having to shout, that puts you under more stress. The absolute best way to learn a different language is when you're not stressed. You're nice and calm and relaxed. And that also applies to different things, not just learning a language as well. The final thing is memory decay. So you might have thought that, okay, you're fine speaking yesterday. I can speak Spanish quite well yesterday. But today I'm just not able to come up with the words. Well, the difference could be the type of words that you're using. So if you're using a certain vocabulary, maybe yesterday you're talking about traveling, and then today you're talking about cooking. Well, the words that you're wanting to use today might not have been used by yourself in conversation for a while. It might have been a month or more since you used it. So spaced repetition comes in at this point, where if you're trying to learn a word, first of all, learn it in increments that are very short. So maybe half an hour gap. So You learn it now, and then half an hour later you learn it again, and then throughout the day you keep learning it. But then in the next few days you learn it at a longer distance. So basically, it can be once every day, or once every 2 days, or 5 days, for example. And assuming you've got a context associated with it, that's a really good way to learn new words. But back to my point, if you're talking about a different subject today than you were yesterday, then obviously you might use words that you've not used for ages, in which case it takes a while to generate and recall the words. And that's not down to your level of the language, it's more down to the bit of the language you're learning at the moment is different to what you're used to. Or at least it's different to how you're using the language yesterday or last time you spoke it. So if you just can't think of a word, it might be because you've not used that word for a long time. Also, on a side note, I'm actually creating a Discord community for Spanish learners. So if you're wanting to learn Spanish, no matter what level you are, complete beginner, or you already can speak some Spanish, there's going to be a Discord community, close knit of 30 people, text chat, and there's going to be a native Spanish teacher helping you out. So if you're interested, there's a link in the description below. But essentially, it's a Discord community to help you reach your language goals and be accountable. And what I mean by accountability is someone making sure you do what you say you're going to do in terms of your language studies. Another word for it is group learning, when you're learning with someone else or with a different group of people, and you're all doing the same thing together and you're helping each other out, overcoming struggles. And research has found that if you work in this way, you're 65% more likely to actually achieve your goals than working alone. As I say, it's in progress at the moment. I'm still creating it, but there is a link below if you're interested. It's also designed for busy people, so you don't have to be available for a certain time or date or a video call. It's just like text chat, basically. You can ask a question, then get a response and read it whenever you're free in your own time. And it's every day of the month as well. It's not just a language lesson where you get help in that hour, or it's not like a language course where you get help in these periods of time. It's whenever. Anyway, that's it for today. And YouTube is really good at recommending videos for you that it thinks that you will love. So up here will be a video that's recommended for you to help you get closer to your language learning goals. See you later.